What's up? Alex1 here, and today we'll look at round 5 of the Vlissingen tournament, which I played 2 weeks ago. And this was against an international master. I don't know how to pronounce his first name, but he was from India. His name was Das. So yeah, after the last round, which was a pretty clean and pretty cool game as well, this game was totally different. And I had to scramble for a draw. So the guy played e4, which he always does. And I prepped some lines here. Amongst others, the Spanish, which he played sometimes, and also he played the Scottish again against a lot of players. So I thought he was gonna play that, but he played knight c3. This kind of resembles my round 1 game, where the guy played bishop c4, but I didn't think he was gonna do that, because that's just really nothing. So I figured he'd go for either d4 here, which is the Scottish again, or what he played, and that was the Spanish 4 knights. And I have a few games in the database here. I'll go knight d4, which is the main move for me at least. You can also go bishop b4, but I find that to be pretty boring. So yeah, knight d4, and now he went bishop a4. So I had a few games here where they go bishop c4, and then you can go bishop c5, and knight takes c5 and castle, or d5. I think d5 is even better. I wasn't too sure, but castling is definitely fine. Then d6. So if knight f3, then bishop g4 with compensation. Yeah, queen e7 is also a move, but yeah. So I was planning to go for that, but after bishop a4, I wasn't too sure. I knew in the back of my mind that I could go for the setup which I had in the game, so I went for that, because otherwise I didn't really see a move. I wasn't sure if bishop c5 was good now, and yeah, c6 might be another move, but I just wasn't too sure. So I figured, why not go for a teeny tiny worse position. But yeah, so the guy goes d3, and here maybe I shouldn't go bishop e7, which I did in the game. Yeah, I could have maybe played a5 here actually. I think he'll play a3 or maybe bishop e3. Yeah, bishop e3 and then a4 probably. So that might be a better move. I went bishop e7, and now the guy has knight d5, which is pretty annoying. After the game he said he'd seen this type of position with well, he'd seen this position actually, this exact position. But we'll get to that later. So he'd seen this position and black castled there, and that's why he played what he played in the game. So there are a few options there. If b5, you can just take somewhere here probably, and if takes, he can take on c8, also on c6 probably, but then no, he can't really take here due to queen b6, but he can just take on c8, and materials equal. He has got an extra bishop, and this pawn is super weak, so this is pretty bad for us. So b5 isn't really an option. Taking on d5 isn't really an option either. At first I thought b5 here, but then he can take on c6. And if we take on a4, then c7, and this rook here is hanging. So that's not an option either. And of course, if castle, he can just win a pawn here. Which maybe I have some compensation, but it's definitely not good for us. So we went bishop e6. This position has been played, I think, about 10 times or something, and bishop e6 wasn't ever played. And it's somewhat logical, because we want to just take the knight now. Well, although it's not really a threat yet, b5 kind of is. And yeah, well, it's not a threat, because if knight takes, e takes, bishop takes, queen takes, d5 just works. After the game he said he was thinking about c4, but he thought maybe knight d7 and then knight c5. And it becomes a bit messy. So he went for knight d7, which is logical. And now bishop g5. And this is kind of the point. He wanted to play this idea, but this idea is much better if I castle instead of bishop e6. Because now I went a6, h6, and he took. And this resulting ending with a castle here, let's say for instance a3 and castle, is pretty bad. Because our king was pretty good placed at the center, and yeah, this king is just way better on e7. So he went f4 here, and instead of a strange move like castling, I just went king e7. So he kind of misjudged this. He could go f5, thinking this pawn is weak in the long run, but there's not really any good way of abusing this. I just go bishop d7 and just go to the g file. And I don't think there's any way for him to get through here. We can even have some compensation on the open g file or something like that. So yeah, take f5 is not really an option. Now we went bishop b3, and we went a5, trying to threaten a4. If he take, we want him to take here, because then we can take with the pawn, which is kind of interesting. Let's say if he takes, we take with the pawn, and if he takes here, we take with the d pawn. And this block, just like in the game, is pretty solid and hard to get through. So yeah, this a5 is a pretty good move. He could go for c4, but then these pawns are all on the wrong squares, and we could just go a4 and then c5. And this ending is pretty good for us. We can go b5 sometime and go work on the b file. And he doesn't really have anything else, so c4 isn't really a move either. So he took on e5, and this is kind of interesting as to how I'm supposed to take back. Like I said before, the block of pawns which we had, if we take with the d pawn and if he takes here, this is pretty hard to deal with being white. Because he can attack f6, but we can just defend it with rook f8. If we take with the f pawn and he takes, he can maybe, I don't know, go rook f2 or something. But I guess I can still go rook f8, and this is still a draw, I guess. I don't know. I figured d takes would be better. He goes rook f3. And now I went a4. It seems like we could have also went bishop g4. Then h5. Threatening somewhat to go rook g8 and h4. But yeah, we went a4, just forcing the matter. And now we went rook hf8. He said during the game that he liked rook, after the game I mean, that he thought rook af8 would be a bit more clean. But I wanted to keep my rook on the on this side to get some counterplay. If he goes, for instance, rook h3, we can just go back, and this is just a draw. And if rook g3, we can just go rook g8. It's worth pointing out that king f8 is bad. It's rook f3, and now we can never defend this pawn here. But he went rook 1f2. Afterwards, he felt like king f2 might be a better move, but he wanted to go behind the rooks. b5, trying to get counterplay. c5, rook c8. So this is the point. I want to have this rook defending here, and this rook just threaten to open up. And now c4. And it's kind of interesting what he's supposed to do. Or if he doesn't do anything, then b4 is a move he doesn't really want to take, because now this pawn is weak, and we can just take with the rook. And if he can't really take, then b4 is just really a threat, because we can maybe create a passed pawn somewhere. So we went a3, and we took. And now it's kind of interesting as well as to how he's supposed to take back. I think c takes d is by far the most natural move. But if rook takes d, I was planning to go rook c4. And yeah, I get some counterplay here, and also f5 is always in the air now. So I guess c takes, which was what he played, is probably the best move. But the downside is that I have this move here. If it didn't have b4, then it would be... well, it'd still be fine, I guess, but there's not really any other plan here. If I move this rook, for instance, there are some problems. There could be some problems, like rook g3 or something. And this is kind of not what I want, even though we still have enough counterplay here with this open c file. We don't want to allow this rook here. It seems like white is doing fine. Black is doing fine here though. But yeah, it's unnecessarily. So b4 is unnecessarily hard. I mean, so b4 is kind of an active way of countering this. If he takes with the pawn, which he did, because otherwise b3 is coming. If he, for instance, goes, which is this is a terrible move, but if he goes h3, I was planning on going b3 here, just getting a rook, a nice square here on c2. So takes, and now rook b8, and I thought this would be an easy draw now, just like this. But instead he went king c1, which is kind of interesting actually. If we check now, for instance rook f c8, he can just go to, I thought he'd go rook c2 here actually, but he can go to b1 as well. And if we take now, we can just take on f6, and a3 doesn't really do anything. Now white is clearly better. King a2. This is a pretty cool move as well. Take with the pawn and king b1 again. And white is clearly better. So I had some time to calculate here, and I just took back. The downside being there might be some rook h3, rook g3 ideas, but then I'd have a check, and now f6 isn't really hanging anymore, and I can create some counterplay with a3 here. So in this case he can't take on f6 now. So that was kind of the point. Instead he went rook c2 here, and yeah, we have a bunch of moves there which we can play. I played this one, but f5 might also be a good try. Takes, and I wasn't too sure about this because these pawns are a bit, well, they're harder to defend now because he can attack them from the side, but they can also move, so that's kind of a good thing. Rook c6 is a move which is also hard to calculate, something like this. Rook c8, king b1, a3 probably. And then rook f2. I mean, the engine says it's minus 0.1 now, so this is just a draw as well. But it's kind of hard to deal with. So I went rook b8, and I figured if you go rook f2, I'd just go back. Instead he played rook c7 and offered a draw. So I think he was planning, I took it obviously. I think he was planning to go rook c2 and then king d7 and rook c7 with a draw. So yeah, a pretty boring game I think. But yeah, against an IM was rated I think something like 2485. This is kind of a good game. It's kind of a solid, really solid game. And I was happy with that. Due to my draw in the first round, this was my first real strong opponent, and I just hold it, so that was nice. After this game I had to play GM, so you'll see that in the next video tomorrow. Things went pretty good, so I'm spoiling a bit, but whatever. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.